Hello there. Happy Wednesday. I hope everyone's doing really well. For this lesson today, we're going to be starting actually graphing quadratic equations. We sort of introduced graphing, like at least the key features before online learning, but today you're actually going to be seeing what it looks like when you graph it, and we're going to be using Desmos as part of our lesson, and then of course this. So what you're going to need to do is on your piece of paper, you're going to write out graphing a quadratic equation in Vertex form. I want you to list everything that I have there on the slide, and then I'm going to walk you through just some reminders when we're looking at Vertex form. Okay, so a quadratic equation, it can be expressed in a few different ways, and one of the most common ways to write out a quadratic equation is something called vertex form. And one of the great things about vertex form is it gives us a visual of what the quadratic will look like even before we graph it. And really strong math students, what they can do is they can look at this equation and they can go, oh, this graph is going to go to the left, it's going to go up this many units, even before they actually graph it. So let's kind of go through this. And again, this isn't brand new, so hopefully this comes back to you. So when you look here at a quadratic equation, you have your h and your k value. So your h value right here. And maybe pause and think about, what do you remember about the h and the k? So if you recall, your h and your k value is actually your vertex of your quadratic equation. So just by looking at that, you should be able to tell, oh, my vertex will be located at whatever point. And specifically, the h value is your x value of your vertex, and it shifts the graph, shifts the parabola left or right. Okay, so I'm going to put that here. I want you to copy that in your notes as well. So the h value shifts the parabola left or right. Okay. And now the k value, what it does is it tells us how high or how low the parabola is going to be shifted. So the k value shifts the parabola up or down. You can probably guess if it's like +3, that means it goes up 3. If it's -3, that means it goes down 3. And then the other part of the vertex form is our a value. And if you kind of remember the frowny face or the smiley face, the a value tells you which way your graph is going to open up. So the a value is determines the parabola is reflected over the x-axis. I think that looks good. Okay, determines if the parabola is reflected. So if it's -2, for instance, that would mean that the parabola is flipped down. It is reflected over the x-axis. Okay, hopefully that sort of makes sense. You might want to pause. And again, when we do the activity, it's going to become clearer. But let's go through a few of these examples. So if I'm looking at this first one, what I like to do is just first underline my h and my k value. So h and my k value. So I'm looking there and I see -2, 3. And so a lot of people are tempted to say, oh, my vertex is -2, 3. Now maybe pause for a second and say, why is that not correct? Because that's what I'm seeing. But if you recall, your h value, it's a little bit tricky. It doesn't actually follow what it says. When it says -2, that actually means it goes to the right 2. And when we do our Desmosing, you're going to see why that happens. It's very odd. So my vertex is actually +2, 3. So this means it went 2 units to the right and then up 3 units. And that would be my vertex. Okay, let's look at another one. So on the second one, I'm going to underline my h and my k. So again, I like to just start there. And so I see 1, -3. So again, I might be tempted to do this, 1, -3, but that's not correct. Because when I see +1, it actually means it went to the left one. So it's actually at -1, -3. So 1 to the left, and it went down 3 units. Okay, why don't you pause, try the next two on your own. Just see if you can do that. Oops. Okay, so let's see if you got it right. So this one should have been +4, +6. So meaning it went 4 to the right and then up 6. That's where my parabola's vertex would be located. And then for the last one, I should have -3. So 3 to the left and then down 5. That's where my vertex would be located. So what I would do here, make sure, number one, you have all these notes. Don't rush through this. You really do need to understand what vertex form is. Now, this is just a brief introduction. You could tell right now I didn't actually graph anything, and that is the goal of this lesson, is to be able to graph and understand how a quadratic equation works in vertex form. So when you go to today's problem set, it's not going to be like what we normally do because you're actually going to be graphing from Desmos. So I'll show you, this is what you're going to be looking at, and it has a series of slides. It's very easy to just rush through it and then try to just copy everything. That's not the goal though. You actually want to play around with it and make some observations. And the amazing thing about Desmos is it's going to help you build a better understanding of why the vertex form works the way it does. So it starts off here. And this is called our parent function, x squared. Everything is compared to the parent function. So if you imagine there's a parent function at x squared, and then this parent function will have children functions, okay? So the children functions are shifted. They might go left, right, up, down, they might flip. There's a lot of things that could happen to these other functions. And so it's gonna help you see that. So like on this one, it says to move the sliders. So for instance, watch here, see how I do that? And you're going to make some observations like, oh, what's happening when I move this here? Or what happens when I do this? Okay, so it's going to walk you through that. You're going to take your time. I'll know when you've completed it. I'll be able to see that. I can also see how much time you've spent on it. So if you're just doing it in a minute, I'll be able to know that. If you have questions, because this can be a little bit weird, you're going to reach out during office hours or email me if you need any help. But hopefully this makes sense and that we're good and set to go. All right, good job. Talk to you later.